Thank you guys for joining me in this journey. So here we seek to simplify AWS knowledge so that you can use it in your day-to-day programming for your personal projects or your school projects or whatever. So today we'll be looking at the RDS service provided by Amazon, which will help you set up a database in the cloud, and you will be able to connect to it through your MySQL Workbench, and you'll be able to edit and create tables and create database, so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's jump right into the tutorial. So first, you've got to go to your home page after logging in, and then you click on RDS, which can be found in recently visited, or you can search on the search bar at the top, and then you click on the DB instances here. After clicking, you will realize that you won't have any instances because we just assume that you're setting it up for the first time. All right, so let's create a database. So we can click on this. After you click on that button, you will be presented with the setup guidelines and certain options that you can choose from. So today we'll be using the free tier so that we don't incur any charges. And yeah, as you can see, the options are here. First, let's choose standard create so that we can pick up what we want. And then these are the different engine options they might have. So they have Amazon Aurora, MariaDB, Postgres, and MySQL. For today's tutorial, we'll be looking at MySQL. So you just click that button and let's just scroll down. Let's choose the latest edition, which would be 8.0.32. Yep. And then when we go on to the templates, we have production, dev test, or free tier. Since today will be just a startup tutorial, we'll be looking at the free tier. Once you click on that, this section should be disabled. So this entire section is for multi-availability zone deployment, which will be available for you in production and for your development databases. We will be looking into it in future tutorials. So for today, we just click on the free tier. And after that, we can create our database identifier. In this case, let's just choose my first database. And your master username can be admin. And we don't want to auto generate a password, so we can just give it our own password. I'm just going to give it a PA. Yeah, so you can make sure both the password match, and then let's just scroll down. So they have different classes of databases available for you in the Amazon RDS. As you scroll down, these are those that are available for the free tier, and the rest you can use it for your production or your development databases. Your requirements should depend on your application's requirements itself. And let's scroll down, look at the storage. For the storage, you'll be using the SSD, and you'll be allocating about 20 GB, which we probably won't hit since this is just for tutorial purposes. And Amazon also gives us an option to enable storage auto scaling, so that if the storage goes above 20, we can set a threshold of about 1000, and you can even increase it up all the way up to 6144 gigabyte. So scrolling down, we have the connectivity part, which is important so they can connect to your database after setting it up. So at this point in time, we won't be connecting to an EC2 compute resource since we don't have anything set up. VPC just leave it as default. Subnet leave it as default. For public access, since I want to place my database in the public subnet, I want to give it yes. And scrolling down, we'll choose the default VPC, and that should be, I don't have a preference for availability zone, and the rest can be remain as whatever it is. For DB authentication, click on password authentication, and we won't be needing enhanced monitoring, but for your development or your production database, it's good to have it so that you can understand what are the CPU usage, what is the CPU usage, and which process is taking up a lot of your resource. And finally, let's create our database. After you click on create, it will take a minute or two for it to create and finish. Okay, let me just close this. No. Alright, let's just wait for a while. Alright, as you can see now, our database is available. So let me click into the database. Here you can find your endpoint, or when you're going to connect to your MySQL Workbench, this will be your host name. And here is a security group that is attached to it. As you can scroll down, these are different security group rules that are attached to this. So let me just take a look at one of the security groups. So we're using the default security group provided to us. And there's two inbound rules. So the one I want you all to focus on is the second one. So for us to be able to access this database publicly from any IP address, you have to create an inbound rule. So how do you do that? You edit inbound rules, and then you can add your own rule. So let me just delete this. All right, so you have to create your own rule, and in this case, let me type out MySQL. It will give you the port range, which is 3306, and let's just choose anywhere IP4, and let me just save these rules. This will allow us to connect to the database from any desktop, and if your computer operates on an IPv6 network, you have to edit it accordingly. Now let me go back to my RDS. As you can see here, this is my host name. Let me just copy that. All right, so let me open up a workbench so that we can see whether we are able to connect to the database. All right, so got this here. Let me just add a new connection. My first database. All right, so for the host name, so you have it here. Let me just key that in. The username you have to remember from previously, but the default username AWS gives the database is admin. So let me just key in that, and the password that we created earlier on, and then we can test our connection. If all works, this should show that we are able to connect to the database. As you can see here, successfully made SQL connection, and you just click on OK, and click on OK here, and then let's connect to our database. Just double click into it. Let's give it some time for it to set up the editor. But as you can see, this is how we are able to connect to the RDS database publicly from our own IP address. However, this is not recommended for production because anyone can access your database if they have access to your endpoint name. So we'll be looking into how to set up an RDS in a private subnet and how are you able to access it from a public subnet later on in future videos. So right now we are inside the database already. So let's just run some simple commands. So let's create database called about AWS. Let me carry that out. All right, that's done. And let me use AWS. All right, so as you can see here, the schema is not changing. Let me just refresh it. As you can see, the AWS database is shown and the tables are not created yet. So if you want, you can create a table. Let me just create one. Create table, maybe services. Just enter that. All right, so let's give it an ID, class int, not now, auto increment, and maybe a name Baka. Okay, the OCD, I want the caps there. 255, not now, and let me just give it primary key ID. All right, let me just copy this. All right, so if I refresh it one more time, I should be able to see the tables under here, which is called services. So this is how you can establish connection to your RDS, how you can create your RDS firstly with AWS, and how you can establish connection through your MySQL Workbench. You'll be able to connect the database from your applications too. And in the next videos, we'll be looking at how to connect to the database which resides in a private subnet, which will be more valuable to you in your in the production environment. So thanks for sticking along for so long. Really appreciate it and hope to see you in future videos. Thank you.